What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over some mistakes that you're going to want to stop making in Chapter 4, Season 4 if you are making any of these. We've had the season for about a week or so now, so I've been able to play a lot. These are things that I initially was doing wrong, or I see other people commonly doing wrong in matches I play. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, comment down below what your biggest mistake has been so far in Season 4, and I also have a version of a video like this, which is more about like general advice for the game. It'll be linked down in the description below if you haven't already seen that. The first big mistake we're going to talk about, and I was very guilty of this myself when the season first dropped, is going to be using the infiltrator pump like a pump shotgun. And I know that you might be like, that makes no sense, it has pump in the name. And what I mean by this is like you shoot the shotgun and then swap to your SMG and then swap back to the shotgun later on. The infiltrator pump, despite having pump in the name, functions more like a high fire rate shotgun. It has a pretty comparable fire rate to the Maven auto, and that's why if you've been using this like a pump and trying to like shoot and then swap back to it, your damage is always just kind of middling because it's not meant to be a high damage pump. It's more of a spammy shotgun. So if you initially were trying to use the infiltrator pump like a traditional pump, try using it as more of a spammy shotgun. It works a lot better. It still isn't my favorite shotgun in the loot pool right now, but I started enjoying the weapon a lot more once I started using it as a spammy shotgun and not as much like a pump. The next mistake is going to be that people get too tunnel visioned and they're not as concerned about snipers when moving around the map. So getting tunnel visioned is always going to be a problem. You know, if you're focused on one thing too much, then you're not going to be able to perceive, you know, as much of your surroundings, or you're not going to, you know, notice as many threats, or you might make some decisions that aren't good because you're too fixated on getting that one kill, for example. And I'm guilty of this. Everyone is guilty of this from time to time, but it matters so much more now that snipers are back. So if you're like in a mid-range fight with somebody and you're just like ARing them down over and over and over again, that often leaves you exposed to just a third-party sniper. And since snipers are back, this is something that you kind of always have to be mindful of and always have to respect, especially in solos. But in any game mode, getting sniped can just like immediately flip the game on its head, you know? So when traveling around the map, make sure, you know, you're jumping randomly or sliding randomly, just anything you can do to potentially make yourself a harder target to snipe for enemies. And then also, whenever you are fighting or whenever you're trying to pay attention to anything, make sure you kind of keep that in the back of your mind that you don't want to make yourself an easy target for snipers. And if you are fighting somebody and peeking in and out of cover, try not to peek the same angle too frequently. You know, if you have a rock and you can choose to peek from either like the side or the top, try to alternate between those because it'll make it harder for other players to snipe you. This is just a good practice all the time, but it's one of those things that it's like way more punishing when there's an insta-kill sniper in the game. The next mistake is going to be potentially ignoring the radio towers. These radio towers, the boss at them will spawn 30 seconds into second zone, but they have somewhat fixed spawns on the map. I'm sure if you watch my channel regularly, you've heard me talk about this a bunch this season, and that's because the radio towers are incredibly good. Once you eliminate the boss and put the key card into the tower, you get forecast for the remainder of the game, which means you'll always see where the next zone is. And in a battle royale, always being able to see where the next zone is a huge advantage. And since there's only 3 radio towers per game, there's only going to be 3 players or 3 parties in the lobby that have this advantage. So if you're able to be one of them, you have a huge advantage over other players in the lobby, and potentially endgame, you might be the only one that makes it endgame with that forecast advantage. So forecast is a huge benefit. I would highly recommend going for it. If you haven't been getting the radio towers at all this season and then you start getting it, endgame is going to be a lot easier for you to play. And then you also get slurp juice from getting this and a gold twin mag AR, which is very nice. Another way you can get the slurp juice is from the combat cache, which will spawn in 3rd zone, or capturing loot island in 4th zone. Another big thing, and this is something that I'm trying to do more often, is use cars. So last season, once the explosive repeater rifle came into the game, cars were not that great to use because it was very easy for the explosive repeater to just hit the car and then get splash damage on you while you're in the car. And, you know, if you're not immediately react, you might get out of the car and then now you're out in the open, or, you know, you stay in the car and you just keep getting splash damage. It was weird, and it made using cars just often not to play, but the explosive repeater isn't in the game anymore, so cars are good again. And the new Nitro Fang vehicle is really good. It's not only like fast, it feels like it handles better than other cars to me, but also I feel like it's harder to shoot somebody out of this car than like the pickup truck, for example. Whenever I'm fighting somebody that's in the Nitro Fang, if they're not driving straight at me, it's very hard to hit them. So I'd highly recommend using cars. Not only do you get around the map faster, you kind of limit the amount of time you're exposed when traveling around the map, but also you have a mobile piece of cover essentially, which can be very good in zero build. The next mistake I see a lot of players making is that they think they're invincible when they use the rocket ram. And this is, I'm not sure why, but I get a lot of free kills on people that either rocket ram way too high just traveling across the map, or try to rocket ram at me. Or even, like, let's say I start shooting them and then they want to get out of that fight, so they switch to the rocket ram. Not only does it have a charge up time, so it takes a while for them to be able to leave, but then they just go straight up into the air and they're very beamable. So just keep in mind whenever you're trying to use the rocket ram that you are a somewhat easy target for other players, and if you're incredibly weak, it probably isn't going to be the play to just try to rocket ram straight up. You can, use this more low to the ground or try to navigate around cover using it, but when you just go straight up, you make yourself a very easy target. And as far as like mobility, that's good for repositioning after in a fight, or moving around once you get shot. Like if you get engaged on, I just think the shockwaves are way better. If you're getting shot, you pull out a shockwave, you throw it, you're out of there. With the rocket ram, you have to pull it out. It has a charge up time, and then you're potentially just getting beamed. You obviously can get beamed when you shockwave as well, but I feel like it's way easier to tag somebody using the rocket ram than it is with the shockwaves. The twin mag AR reloads fast every other reload, and there will be 2 magazines next to your reticle. If both of them are full, then you're going to get the fast reload. If only one of them is full, your next reload is going to be slow. So if you're using the twin mag AR, it's best to make sure that that both mags are full. That way you're able to get the fast reload once a fight happens. And this was also true with the twin mag SMG in the past, but with the AR, you no longer need to shoot off any bullets to reload that second mag. So if you don't have the fast reload, you can just hit your reload button again and it'll reload anyways, and then you'll be on the fast reload once you get into a fight. And like that can be a big deal because the twin mag AR is incredibly good. It's got very good damage and range, but it doesn't have the best magazine size. So you might miss out on some kills that you would have gotten otherwise if you aren't on the fast reload. Another crucial mistake that people make in every battle royale is not repositioning after a fight. Third parties are one of the most common things people complain about in my comment section, or like say that's making them lose games. And a lot of why people get third partied is after a fight concludes, they're way too concerned about looting, and they're not as concerned about, paying attention to what's going on around them. This kind of goes back to getting tunnel visioned, but also they're not as concerned with getting out of that area because when you're fighting off, everybody else nearby is going to hear you fighting, and obviously players are going to try to third party. So just keep in mind which items you actually, like using. If you have a gold AR, a gold pump, a blue SMG, shockwaves, and slurps, you have a great loadout, but your SMG rarity is lacking. When you look at that loot, you don't need to item by item analyze whether or not it's worth taking. Swap your SMG if there's a higher one. If not, go about your day, just grab the ammo and potentially consumables. But I think just fast looting and knowing which items you actually want or what items could potentially improve your loadout, it makes it much easier to not get third-partied after a fight. When I do those spectating videos, a lot of the things I notice is that people stick around way too much after a fight. So just, try to get quickly out of there after fighting, and your odds of getting third-partied do decrease significantly. It's always going to happen. There's no just way to play where you'll never get third-partied unless you just never fight. But, doing things like trying to reposition after a fight or being less slow with your looting will reduce the likelihood of getting third-partied. Another mistake that I think a lot of players are making this season that's costing them games is that they're going in dry with these shotguns. And what I mean by that is they're not getting any opening AR tags on their opponents, which the twin mag AR is incredible. A few bullets is a lot of damage out of this gun. And that makes it much easier for you to win your shotgun fights. And the shotgun effectiveness has kind of taken a step back this season, aside from the exotic Maven, which we'll get to in a moment. But if you're using just one of the base shotguns, then getting into a 50-50 fight with the opponent is not ideal. And if you were to, it's never been ideal, but if you were to kind of rewind time to last season when we had Havoc Pump Repeater or Havoc Pump Mammoth Pistol, if you were good with those two weapons and you hit a solid 170 pump shot into a repeater shot into another pump shot, or a fat pump into a mammoth pistol into another pump, it was very easy to just 250 to 0 somebody incredibly fast if your aim was good. And with the shotguns this season, they're not as lethal. So if you're going in without those opening tags and then you're hitting for 100 with your sharp tooth shotgun and then having to swap to the SMG for the damage trade afterwards, just much more likely things don't go your way. And then also with the exotic Maven being in the game and being sold by an NPC, that weapon is like the king of 50-50 fights. Like 50-50 fights are often not good to take, but if the exotic Maven excels in that type of situation, so if you're kind of playing too confident and then you go up against that exotic Maven, it's going to be a tough fight for you. So just get those opening arrow tags. I feel like you have to play a little bit more structured and a little bit like smarter this season because of like how insane last season was with like the pump and the repeater. You could get away with a lot of bad plays if your aim was solid. So just try to play a little bit more structured and a little bit more like correct, I guess. And that can kind of make up for some of the step back we've taken on shotgun damage. Another mistake that I see a lot of players make in the spectating videos I make, and this is also something that I run into when I'm playing the game versus other people, is that they're very indecisive endgame, and that like it'll be a 1v1 or a 1v1v1. They won't be in zone, and this is also alleviated if you have the forecast bonus. It makes it easier to not get in these situations. But anyway, they won't be in zone, and then they'll just take an incredibly long time before they decide to make any play whatsoever. And then they leave themselves no time. They wait until Storm is at their back, and they're basically like choosing to either take 8 Storm damage or run into gunfire, and it's very hard to like do anything there. Whereas if they were to make a play a little bit sooner, it might be risky. They might, lose the game. But it's better to make a play when you kind of have time, or try to rotate when you kind of have time, rather than waiting until the last possible second. There's times where you do want to late rotate, especially if you have something like shockwaves. But this kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the rocket ram. I've noticed a lot of people this season just waiting until the last possible moment to rotate, getting fried, and then they try to rocket ram, and then they just get fried out of the air. And it's just like they don't really leave themselves much of a chance to accomplish anything, And that is going to bring us to our final point. And I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make when playing this game is that they're worried way too much about winning. And I feel like that kind of leads into that indecisiveness. And I don't mean like they get on and they want to win, but like they're stressed the entire time about like anything they do might make them lose the game, and that everything they do, they're kind of second guessing themselves, or they're like not as decisive with their fighting because they don't want to lose, and then that makes them kind of like skittish, and like I said, they second guess everything they do. I feel like at times worrying too much about losing makes it like it makes it harder for you to win than it would be if you kind of just win with the flow. I feel like you just want to play more calm and not care as much, and if you win, good. If you lose, if you make a bad play and you lose, try to learn from it and go next. But if you're like overly stressed about winning all the time, I feel like it makes it much harder to play well. But that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found this helpful, informative, interesting, and hopefully you stop making some of these mistakes in Season 4. Like I said, there will be a video linked down in the description below, which is more like general advice. We kind of got into some of that general stuff later on in the video, but that'll be linked down in the description below if you're interested. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.